Well, good day there, folks. It's Matt Leger here with Maple Grove Productions. You know who I am. You know what I do. I wanted to talk to you guys about something. It's a little bit difficult to explain. It's kind of something that most people, including myself, have some difficulty wrapping their heads around because it's somewhat abstract. It's very spiritually based. It's something that you really have to practice hard at. Wow, my English sucks. You really need to practice this skill or this technique a lot in order to become proficient with it. Like with most things, right? But this one's a little out there. Let's just say that. I'm going to start by reading a poem. Don't be scared. It's actually a good poem. Don't be afraid of poems. So I'm guessing if you're watching my channel in this video that you're not afraid of poems anyway. And that you're in touch with your sacred masculine and your sacred feminine side. Now, this is fast becoming one of my favorite books. Kara by John O'Donohue. Fan-freaking-tastic book. I can't tell you how much I enjoy this. I read a few pages every day, and this is one of the few books that really grabs me. Like, I have a hard time putting it down because I just want to see what's on the next page, what's on the next page, what's on the next page, and then I end up reading like a whole chapter in one sitting, which is unusual for me because I'm usually quite a slow reader because I like to process things. Like, I won't get too off on a tangent here, but for me, if I read through a page and I haven't absorbed every single word on that page, I'll reread it and reread it and reread it until it really gets baked in there. I think I actually made a video about that one day where if you're having those days where your brain is scattered and you're all over the place and the words are not going in, rather than frustrating yourself, it's time to put the book away and do something else, right? Some days the information goes in quite readily, quite easily, effortlessly. Other days it's just I can't even get through a sentence or two without just my mind wandering. So that's when it's time to put the book away. Don't frustrate yourself or piss yourself off. Just save it for another day. So anyway, this kind of explains a little bit of what I'm trying to do here and what message I'm trying to get across on this video. So listen to this. This is, again, Kara by John O'Donohue, a book of Celtic wisdom. And Kara means soul friend. It's about the Celtic soul friend. This is page 77 of the book. And it is chapter 2, at the end of chapter 2. A blessing for the senses. May your body be blessed. May you realize that your body is a faithful and beautiful friend of your soul. And may you be peaceful and joyful and recognize that your senses are sacred thresholds. May you realize that holiness is mindful, gazing, feeling, hearing, and touching. May your senses gather you and bring you home. May your senses always enable you to celebrate the universe and the mystery and possibilities in your presence here. May the eros of the earth bless you. It's just short and sweet and to the point and has bright visuals, and I just love it. I love everything about this book. But there's a section here that talks about what I'm trying to get across today. Now, I'm not going to read straight out of the book because you can read that book if you want. I'd actually highly suggest that you do because it's such a wonderful book. Not a paid sponsor, by the way. I'm just a big fan. But there's a common theme in the book, which is the Celtic eye. The Celtic eye was not, for lack of better words, it was not as discerning as the present aged eye or mind. The Celtic eye was one that saw things in a unified field, in a togetherness. It was really a world of unity, you know, and that applies to the physical, the emotional, the spiritual, the psychological, it was all one thing. It was not separate, right? Just like our bodies to the Celts were not separate from the spirit. They're one and the same. They're different aspects of the same thing. Different expressions of the same phenomenon. Can't talk. So I've been really trying hard to live that way. And I've been really giving it a lot of thought and effort. Thought's not the right word. I've been giving it a lot of effort, but not in a try-hard kind of sense, in a discovery mode. Because this is the kind of thing that the more you try to do it, the further away you get from it. The more you try to reach out and grab it, the further away it gets. And this goes back to Taoism as well. And I'm quickly, guys, becoming in love with life because of how magical it is and the connections that are there. When your eyes really start to see the connections, not just to assume that they're there, but you actually are fully aware of them in a mindful sense. Like, this is inseparable connections, the interconnectedness of things. Then your doubt disappears. Your faith becomes so strong. It becomes a part of your inner strength. And you get to a point where you just can't separate these things anymore. And I think for me, that's a beautiful thing. I want to live in a unified way. I want to have a mind that sees by default the togetherness of things, the unity in things, the comprehensiveness of life on this earth. That is the default state where I want to live. Now, what does this all mean? This is kind of way out there, Matt, right? Like, what are you talking about, dude? Like, very esoteric, maybe, is what you might be thinking. But again, if you're watching my channel, I'm guessing you're past all that. But it's a worthy question. You know, what are you trying to say here? And I guess what I'm trying to say is that I don't believe that we should be separating the feeling from the experience, right? We often seem to think that these things are happening in separate parts of our brains, and maybe they are, but that's neither here nor there. That's not to the point at all, because it's one unified experience. Part of that experience involves thought, the mental side of things, which, as we know, is the mental side is space, is universal. The universe is mental. But there's also the feeling side of it, the emotion, you could even say the chemical part of it, the neurotransmitters. You know, to me, and I'm slowly getting there, but I'm starting to see it now. The way that it is for me it's all just one thing, right? So let me give you a concrete example here, because I realize that this is very abstract. When I look outside, for example, right now I'm looking up at the sky. There's little patches of blue. It's mostly cloudy. It's overcast today, but there are little, spots where the sun is barely shining through. But it's a winter day. It's January the 22nd right now. It's to be expected that things are going to be a little darker and grayer and colder and not as pleasant for the human body. But you see how there's a perception happening with my eyes, but there's also something else going on, right? There's the feeling. How do I feel about this sensual perception? What does it do to me on the inside when I look out at the sky? Now, it's very easy here to separate those two things into separate categories and say, okay, my brain is visualizing is receiving the light, the photons, and then processing that in the brain and coming up with what I deem is my reality. And then on the other hand, there's, how do I feel about this? Oh, well, it's a little depressing, it's gray, it's dark, it's drab, it's not very pleasant. But see how easy it is to separate those things and have them be on completely opposite ends of the room being the inner mind. But when in reality, this is one process here. This is one experience happening. They're not separate. They're not separate at all. It's one in the same experience. It's a seeing and a feeling. It's not an either or. It's an and. It's a both. See where I'm going with this? And this could apply on everything. I can't think of a single thing where this wouldn't apply. Let me give you another example to try to keep us a little grounded here. Conflict, right? Everybody has conflict. Everybody fights with their partner, has an argument with their kids or with a coworker or a friend. We don't always see eye to eye, and that's a normal, typical part of the human experience. Now, when this happens, there's a cognitive component to it, right? That's like analyzing the situation to try to make sense out of it. But there's also a feeling component to it where you might start to feel frustrated, angry, resentful, spiteful, all these emotions that we label as negative, right? Which I don't believe that's the case. I think that every single emotion has a purpose and shouldn't be ignored. It's the whole black wolf, white wolf thing that we could talk about another time. But when you're having this conflict, so for example, my kids are teenagers now, and we have pretty expected, normal teenage sort of issues that we have conversations around, and I'm quickly realizing that when my kids anger me, or here's a better way of saying it, when I become angered by a conflict with my kids or a situation, because they're not doing that to me, it's sort of manifesting within myself. They didn't do that to me. So you see how that language is not appropriate? It's not accurate language. Take that back when that happens and reword it and say, no, actually I didn't say that right. Let me try again. So there's something a-brewing inside during these moments of conflict. But is that feeling separate than the analytical, cognitive part of that experience? No, it's not. It's all happening at once. Does thought create the emotion, or does emotion create the thought? It's actually neither one of those. It's actually both. A thought and an emotion they spring up almost at the same time. So you can't really say, oh, well, one caused the other. Maybe in certain circumstances that might be the case, but for the most part, these things are happening either at the same time or so closely together that you really can't separate them. And I'm starting to believe that you shouldn't. So what does this all mean in a practical sense? Well, when I'm having a conflict with my teenagers, it's important to be aware and process not just the words that are being shared, but the feelings that are circulating. Because what I'm feeling inside, or what my kids are feeling inside, it's going to come up in the air. Okay, for lack of better words, it's gonna be felt in the aura. It's gonna be felt in the energy in the room. That's why when you walk into a room where people have been fighting, that energy is almost like still in the air. You can feel it. You can sense that tension. People say that all the time, like there's a tension in the air. What is that? What are you talking about? There's no tension. I don't see any tension here. But there is. And two things. So when there's a lot of conflict in one space, Okay, like with ghosts or not possessions, but hauntings. Something nasty happened there. Maybe multiple nasty things happened to the point where these emotions, these sensations got baked into the walls physically. And you could say the same for when there's been a big fight. You know, when you walk into that room after there's been a big fight, like you can sense it, you know. I know a lot of people talk about when they were younger, you know, and their parents were fighting. And it's like the whole house took on that aura of conflict. It's like the whole house, the walls like were vibrating with that emotional turmoil. It's a very strange thing, but it is, there's something to it. There's something going on there. Now, on the opposite end of the spectrum, the same could be said when you walk into a place that's clear and clean and devoid of negative emotions, a place of peace and worship. Like, I don't want to say church because I have mixed emotions about that one, but a holy place. For example, my friend Mary's office space is one of those, and I'd like to think that my office space is like that as well. But you can tell that she's put in a lot of work into have it be a comfortable, sacred, safe space for herself and the people that she does healings for. And that she smudges regularly. She clears the air. She clears out that negative emotion so that it doesn't accumulate and get baked into the walls. It's like she's allowed the walls to become porous to the point where they don't hold on to that negative energy anymore. And when you walk into her office space, where she does a lot of her work and her healing, you can sense it's a calm, peaceful, serene place where you could just, it's inviting. It makes you want to go in there and just curl up on the couch and just meditate because it's so comfortable. You know, a lot of us, our bedrooms are like that. Think about your bedroom. If your bedroom's not comfortable and a place of rest where you feel calm and peaceful and serene, something wrong with your environment there. A bedroom should be exactly that. It should be a place where you can go rest, where your senses are not bombarded with, you know, stimulation. It's a place to go and unwind and to let go. So, all that to say, guys, that life doesn't have to be this dichotomy. I don't know if that's the right word, but it doesn't have to be this black or white thing. Like, I'm still a big believer that life is a vast spectrum of grays, all shades of grays that you can possibly imagine. And I'll go beyond that and say that it's a full spectrum of color. It's not even a black or white grayscale. It's, if black is at one end and white is at the other end, well, in between is not actually gray, it's the rainbow. It's the full spectrum of visible light and invisible light, I would say. So that becomes a way of life, of undoing the damage or the misprogramming, of separating oneself, separating one's spirit from the body, separating one's body from the earth, separating the earth from the universe, separation, 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 segregation, segregation, segregation. It's a game that the powers that wish to be would like us to be as divided as possible, because a people who is divided, they're easier to control. But when we look within, we quickly find that there is no separation. And I'm not talking about this, you know, holier than thou, like, oh, I'm one with everything. If you can get to that place, great. But it's not a matter of convincing yourself. It's not even a matter of belief. It's a matter of accepting the reality of the universe, which is one of cohesion. And if you're thinking, oh, well, how can that be? There's space everywhere. As we know, space is not empty. It's anything but. So the space element, the ether element, is what connects all things. And thank you, Nick, my friend Nick at the Mind Orchestra, for helping me to understand that. The space is what connects us all together. It's what connects all things, whether animate or not. And on that note, the Celts were animists, right? So everything has a spirit. The rocks have a spirit. The trees have a spirit. I have a spirit. This computer has a spirit. Even technology has a spirit. And it's foolish to think that it doesn't. That's why as soon as I started working with AI, I treated it as though it had a spirit, because I believe it does. Our technology is our creation, and therefore it's infused with a little bit of our spirit in it. But regardless, all things are blessed with spirit. So in knowing that, and in living that way, we do not separate ourselves from our experience. We do not separate our emotions from our bodies. We do not separate the spiritual aspect of life, the invisible, from the visible. We do not separate the immaterial from the material. For example, this tree that I'm looking at right now, okay, I only see one side of it. There's a whole other side to this tree that I can't see right now. Does that mean that that other side doesn't exist? Or that it's not part of the tree? Of course not. My perception does not affect in any way, shape, or form the wholeness of that tree. Because I'm not able to perceive the other side that's facing away from me, does not mean that that tree does not have a whole other side to it. You know what I mean? Do you get where I'm going with this? So part of it is accepting that our senses are very limited, but they're only the beginning of the story of understanding this life and this existence and why we're here, why we chose to be here. It's only the beginning. It's only the first step, but it's a step in the right direction, right? So I can't say that I fully embody this way of life that I speak about today, but I'm definitely interested in continuing down this path, because it's one of great fulfillment. It's one of a belonging unlike any other. You know, the book is really, the Anamkara book is really helping me to understand that within me, I have everything I need to be successful. I have everything I need to keep going, to motivate myself, to cure any disease. It's a process of constant regeneration. And a friend of mine is very big on regeneration. And he tries to live his life as if, well, not even as if, it's in alignment with the regenerative aspects of life, of the world, of the planet, of the trees, of nature, of ourselves. Because we're regenerative beings. If I cut myself, take a big chunk of skin off of my hand, within, a few weeks it'll grow back and it'll regenerate. And we just take that for granted, like, no big deal. But it is a big deal. It's a huge deal. It's a huge deal. That means that we have the ability to heal ourselves innately. It's there. It's there. It's just people are confused now with the medical system, and I don't want to get too far off on a tangent here, but we've started to doubt our abilities to heal ourselves at the emotional level, at the psychological level, at the physical level. We have everything we need already. Nature just helps us to find our own innate healing abilities. Nature just promotes healing. It doesn't do the healing for us. We do that as a part of nature, again, unification. As a part of nature, we heal ourselves. Nature, through whatever, herbs, for example, will promote healing. The herb itself doesn't do the healing. The herb helps the body, helps the spirit do the healing. See what I mean? So, it's all just one thing. And we separate ourselves enough. We allow ourselves to be separated enough. I think it's time that we live from a place of unification and cohesiveness, because that's where the fulfillment in life comes from. So I hope that made sense. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think in the comments, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.